Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm Tim Harris. Thank you so much for stopping back by. Today, start the clock, free legal advice for the next 45 minutes. Actually, none of this is legal advice. Consult your own attorney, yada, 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 yada. Industry legend, Bob Bluhm. Bob, thank you for being here.
Good to be with you, Tim.
So just in case someone out there lives under a rock, would you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm an attorney and an asset protection attorney, and been doing that for a number of years. Started out as a trial lawyer years and years ago, and switched sides to protect people and companies from lawyers like I used to be.
Now, a couple weeks ago in this very building, we were holding a mastermind, and you gave a 10 or 15-minute presentation. And after everyone stopped sweating and being completely scared, I'm pretty sure you rang up, $100,000 worth of billables. But no, you were talking about like just basic corporate governance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been lucky. My first partner ever is Scott Horn. And you learn about the whole never sign your name without an initial and, all these little things because he's worried about, when you have an attorney involved in the day-to-day, there's just not a whole lot of the paperwork part that you miss, right?
Right.
So I've been lucky that a lot of my companies have very, very, very good habits from minutes to resolutions, but we'll get into that later. First segment every week is the bottom line up front. Look, there's people out there listening right now. They're like, attorney, change the channel. But we may have them for another 5 or 6 minutes. So I want you to take up to 2 minutes, the most important things that you think people need to be focused on, what maybe people should be avoiding, what they should be pursuing, just kind of the cliff notes of what we're going to talk about for the next 35 minutes.
Sure.
Good to go?
Yeah, good to go.
All right, bottom line up front.
All
Go.
right. All right. Well, the bottom line is you need to do business with entities. Typically, people in the U.S. are going to use a limited liability company, and they need to use these entities in a proper way, meaning that if you just set up an LLC and kind of set it and forget it, that isn't going to work, because these entities are kind of like a vehicle. You buy a car and you don't do any maintenance on it. You don't take it in for an oil change. You don't do anything to the car. Pretty soon it's going to die. And you take it back to the dealer and say, hey, this car is no good. And they say, well, let's check the maintenance records. And did you do this and this and this and change the oil and all this stuff? And you say, well, no, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Well, no wonder. So an LLC, a corporation, a limited partnership, any of these entities are just like that. You got to maintain them. And then people say, well, what do you mean maintain them? Well, you need to, renew them annually with the state. Typically, in most states, you need to typically pay an annual, file an annual report, pay a renewal fee, need to have minutes of major business decisions, need to have resolutions authorizing the company to take a certain action, such as even to open a bank account, to apply for credit, to apply for a loan, to purchase real estate. All those things should require a resolution. And so documentation is key, and you need to document your actions, and you need to really treat your LLC or your corporation as if you had third parties in it who may even be unfriendly to you, and they're kind of looking for a way to take you out as the president or the leader or the manager of that LLC. And so you run those companies like you're running a publicly traded company. You're accounting, you're transparent, you're making sure everybody involved knows exactly what's going on, and you're fully documenting everything. So the last thing you want to do is treat it like your own personal entity. That is called alter ego, and that can result in piercing the corporate veil, which means they can get at your personal assets rather than just the company's assets. So that's my take.
So recently, you may not know this about me, I like to sue people. I was in a lawsuit with an HOA. Still am. I'm winning, by the way. We're filing our third amended petition today.
Wow.
But the president of the HOA in a meeting said, we're not like a Fortune 500 company. We won't be held to the same standards. And my wife, I've got her on audio, she goes, oh, yes, you will.
Oh, yeah.
Because do you know Scott Belsley here in Dallas?
Yeah.
So Scott is another one that helped us 20-something years ago set up everything. So when you're raised in the business by someone that is passionate about protecting what they've built, you get a different view into things.
Sure do.
Could you talk a little bit at RCN Capital? And we close 120 to 180 loans a week. And our poor legal team, some of the entity documents that we see, it's like they own Nick's Pizza and they're buying their 8th rental. And the bylaw says the company's organized to rent a building in, let's just call it Dallas, Texas, but they're buying rentals in Atlanta, Georgia. And we bring it up that like, you really can't do that. I've been doing it for 10 years. I mean, if you've been robbing banks for 10 years and then you get caught, like it was still wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Could you talk about, let's have some fun in this first segment. Let's talk about some of the dumb things that real estate investors do, whether it's have one entity that runs their construction, their wholesaling, their flipping, and their rental business, or not taking minutes. Let's just talk about, we'll do best practices next. Let's have fun with worst practices.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
A lot of worst practices. Yeah, I see them all the time. I see them every day. You've touched on some of those worst practices, and that is just assume.
Because I remember your slide.
Oh, okay.
Your slide was up there, and I was like, oh, that's me. Oh, no. Anyway, so go ahead.
Well, worst practices are, thinking you can do anything you want to with your LLC, with your corporation. There are restrictions based on state law, what you've stated in the articles, the formation documents as to what that company is authorized to do. And then to the extent that you have others in the company who have a vote, who have a voice, they need to authorize that action that you might want to take, like buying rentals in Atlanta with a Dallas, Texas pizza company. Not authorized to do that. And so, once again, documentation ends up being everything, because we've got to be able to document what are we doing, why are we doing it, did the company authorize it, yes, no, and so we need to have a document for it. I just recently got a client was in a closing, and an attorney was handling the closing out of state, and they wrote back to the client. I mean, this is you know what a closing's like. I mean, it's a fire drill. Everybody's running. Yeah. Oh, we need this. Now we need this. It's always last minute stuff. But anyway, they were just set to close. The lawyer said, we can't close unless I see a resolution authorizing you to buy this property. So once again, the company was not authorized to make that transaction, and it's stopped everything in its tracks. Right. So once again, worst practices are signing documents in your personal name. What's so bad about that? Well, you've made yourself a party to the contract. And that means if the other side of the contract thinks you didn't fulfill the contract, they have the right to sue you personally for breach of contract.
So let's teach a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
How do I sign my name and it's not my name? What do I do?
Well, you're signing RCN Capital, Tim Heriage, manager, if that's the case. So now RCN Capital.
So it's the signature line. It's not how I sign it.
Yeah, it's the signature line. Exactly. In other words, are you representing yourself as an agent of the company who is really the buyer or the person in the transaction, or are you the guy in the transaction? You don't want to be that person. So you want to always have the shield of liability protection of an entity.
Isn't it important to put Scott was always like, comma, manager, comma, president.
Yeah, that's
even in the signature. Is that what you should do?
Right, because now you're designating what's my authority to enter into this transaction. I'm the manager, I'm the president of the company, I'm a vice president, whatever you are.
I've always been the vice president of our C Corp, that is the managing company of all of our stuff, because it was an entity that was in existence long before I met my wife, and it's cool to have a woman-owned company. And it's funny how natural that comma VP is, right? And I've got this one resolution that, tell me if this is bad or not, because I've had different opinions. I actually was using it this week. We were selling a note. This resolution is from 2007. And it names me, that I can do whatever I want, whatever I think I need to do, basically, blah, blah. It's a very carte blanche resolution. I've had some attorneys tell me, I need a new one, or oh, I need one specifically for this property. But when we wrote the resolution, it said to purchase, sell, lease, dispose of, repair, blah, 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 any properties he sees fits, and the normal, but it was kind of a carte blanche.
Yeah,
But
right.
should I get a new resolution? Should we reaffirm that? How best practice would be?
Well, yeah, best practice. I mean, that's not bad. At least you have some authorization, and it's kind of aged.
Yeah.
But well, here's the thing: if somebody is really active, they're buying all the time. It's not necessary to do a resolution for every single house. You're buying 100 houses a year. You don't need 100 resolutions. You could have a blanket resolution like that, authorizing you to take those actions. But then that's good. But once again, the whole point is, can you document what you're doing?
Right.
And, people who are real estate entrepreneurs, business entrepreneurs, you're not wired that way. You're not dotting the I's, crossing the T's. You're the big picture guy. You're the blowing and going guy, making things happen. And so you need somebody, a law firm behind you, some secretary or a VA or somebody, an assistant who's going to take care of that stuff.
Well, and I like your common sense approach, Bob, because you're not saying that if you're in the coffee business, you need a resolution for every cup of coffee.
Oh no! Oh no!
Right? Like, hey, we're not going that nuts.
No.
But you do need to protect yourself, because if in this business, you ask any investor, why are you in this business? Oh, to become wealthy, to become financially free. It's like, sure, it would be bad to lose all that just because you didn't take care of some paperwork.
Yeah, and what we're really talking about is the fact that these are called limited liability companies. And what people, that phrase just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But what it really means is that you have limited liability. And that's the whole reason anybody sets up a corporation or a limited liability company in the first place, is to make sure that they have no personal liability. And so if things go wrong in the business, the worst thing that could happen with a properly structured entity is you could lose the investment you made in that business. But that's like any investment. You buy a stock, it could go to zero. So that's why people advise, don't invest money you can't afford to lose. And so that's the same thing is true with an LLC owning properties. Worst thing that could happen is, you could lose the properties in the LLC with slip and falls, fires, things that occur on the property. They can sue the LLC and satisfy the judgment out of the assets of the company. But the good news is, if you have other properly formed companies with other assets in those companies, the liability in the one is not going to affect the others. And it certainly, if it's set up properly, is not going to affect you on a personal level. They're not coming after your personal assets. Well, that's the goal.
And as the former owner of a property and casualty company, there's nothing insurance companies love more than to have someone else to split the claim with.
Oh, yeah.
And so if there's let's just say, a reason to say, well, Tim Herridge personally did that. I think most liability insurance companies, I carry a lot of liability insurance for every company, for everything I do, personally, because I run my mouth a lot. You know that. But, hey, you don't want to slip up and then give even the insurance company a reason to say, you know what, I think you're on your own on this one, Bob.
Yeah, right.
Negligence is a big thing.
Negligence is big, yeah.
Insurance companies love to say, oh, well, you were negligent.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, well, yeah, but I have liability insurance. Well, maybe you don't, right? All right, so we're going to take a quick break and come back. And I want to start talking about best practices, entity formations, and different types of entities. And we'll stay away from tax advice. I don't want to trip that up. Stick around. We'll be right back. Here at RCN Capital, we understand that everyone's financial needs are different. Whether you're pursuing long-term or short-term ventures, our wide range of loan programs will help reach your financial goals with ease and flexibility. We have loan programs for fix and flips, long-term rentals, new construction, and multifamily properties. And don't forget to ask about our Platinum program for experienced investors. To learn more about our loan programs or apply, click the link in our bio or email info@rcncapital.com. Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm Tim Herridge. Thank you for sticking around. Remember, click below, like, subscribe, rate, review, comment, ask questions. Let us know how we can help you. So I'm still here with Bob. And Bob, at our mastermind a couple weeks ago, you put this slide up. And it was like the wholesaling company and the flipping company and the rental company and the management company. And People were grabbing their phones and taking pictures. 2 questions. And this is the part where I want you to just go if you want to keep going. Is that all necessary? And how hard is it to keep track?
Yeah, well, sometimes it's necessary, sometimes not. Depends on what somebody's doing, what kind of business they're in. So the facts always dictate the structure. So if somebody's an active flipper, they're doing a lot of wholesaling, and they pick and choose which properties out of that wholesaling funnel they're going to use to rehab, and then maybe out of the rehabs they're going to keep some as long-term rentals. Well, now they've got kind of 3 different businesses. If you think about it, they've got a wholesaling business, they've got a flipping business, rehabbing, and they've got a buy and hold business. And so if they're active in those areas, it makes sense to have separate entities for each one of those activities. They all have different liabilities. They all have different types of income. Flipping and wholesaling is earned or active income, which is taxed a different way than long-term rentals, which is passive income. And so it really does help to separate the liability that's associated with wholesaling so it doesn't affect your long-term rentals. Same thing with rehabbing. You got guys coming on the property, swinging hammers and working power tools and knocking out walls and, being up on the roof, and people can get hurt. They're supposed to be bonded, supposed to be insured. They aren't half the time. We all know how life works.
Hey.
And so, if you own that property that's being rehabbed in your personal name, something goes wrong, some guy's hurt on it, on the property, they can sue you as the owner of the property and satisfy the judgment out of your personal assets. That's the last thing anybody wants. So we set up a limited entity, limits your liability. You have no personal liability. You're good to go.
It was probably 6 to 8 years ago. Good friend of mine named Fred, I won't say his last name, bought a house in Dallas. Fred was going to flip that house. They found a body buried in the backyard.
Oh, man.
It was the person that was supposed to have owned the house. Literally, the person's roommate had murdered the guy.
Jeez.
Buried him under the compost pile, and then got fake IDs and sold the house. And what people don't understand is Fred paid cash for that house. But if you had a loan against that house, and then all of a sudden you don't own it, you still got a loan against the house. And a lot of people don't understand title insurance, it doesn't cover fraud. It's now there's some errors in emissions policies, but the whole point is, this is probably a drastic thing, a dead body in the yard.
Those are the weirdest facts I've ever heard.
But it happened.
It does.
I know it happened. And, the police department, once they decide that they need to take over a crime scene, you don't get to tell them, no, I'm on a hard money clock.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. And then also, I love that you brought up tax treatment. I know we're not here to talk about that, but wholesaling, right, is very transactional, yep. Right? You've got cost of goods and income and it's very or income and expenses, right? Well, then you get to flipping. Now you got inventory items, cost of goods sold, gross sales, like a whole different chart of accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the rental side, Jennifer and I, we love to set those entities up to where we're 99% owners personally, and then there's a management company, because on that K1, I want as much of that loss hitting my personal 1040 as possible.
You bet.
And what I found, and I love the name of your company, Asset Defense Team, is it just takes a team and a little bit of planning, and it pays for itself.
Well, it does. It certainly does. And, there's you've heard it a million times. It's cheaper to do it right the first time than to do it over and over again because you screwed it up. So get it right the first time. Use professionals who know what they're doing to set up your entities, may help you run your entities. Use good accountants, good CPAs who are going to get the numbers in the right boxes and make sure that everything is accounted for. So, yeah, all those things, it's the operations side. There are 3 real good components that you need to be aware of. First, you need to structure the entity properly. That means, you can't be doing business in Texas with a California LLC. It's got to be structured properly. Second of all, it's got to be documented properly, meaning You can't walk around with a one-page LLC and think you're protected, because you went to the Secretary of State website, you filled out a little form, and you think that's going to protect you against a whole team of experienced plaintiffs' lawyers. Think about that for a minute. It's ludicrous to think that somebody who knows nothing about what they're doing, but they heard you can go to a website or you can go to someplace, fill out a form, you get an LLC automatically, real cheap. I got an LLC, I'm good to go. Well, no, you're not. You have some papers that say you tried to start an LLC, but there's a whole lot more to it than that. So
I think one person I heard referred to a website as Legal Doom. I don't think that was you.
No, it couldn't have been me.
And here's the other cool thing. I tell people, specifically if you're listening in the state of Texas, look, as a veteran, I don't have to pay the filing fee with the Secretary of State.
Cool.
Right? And there's a lot of other benefits that come with that. And I completely agree with you. If you plan to go somewhere, make sure just set it up for the plan. And you mentioned something earlier, and I want to just kind of dovetail on that. You said having someone to make sure you run it right. Is that what Asset Defense Team does, is kind of check in with the customers, make sure we've got minutes and things? Could you tell me a little bit about all that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we do. It's not a main part of what we do, but it's certainly a service because clients over the years have asked for it. Let's say, now what do I do? I've got this LLC. It's kind of like a dog chasing a car. What are you going to do when the dog catches the car?
Right.
So now you have an LLC. Now what do you do? And so there are requirements. You need to typically register with the State Department of Revenue. You might need a business license depending on what you're doing, what kind of business you're in. You may need, you're definitely going to need what's called an EIN, a taxpayer identification number. We get all that for clients if they ask, of course. So these are additional services that we provide because they're necessary, they're needed. And so for clients who, everybody's different. Some are do-it-yourselfers, and that's fine. If you've got the time and the know-how of maintaining your entity properly, great. Go ahead. But otherwise, if you don't and you want to focus on finding deals, doing deals, and you want to leave that stuff to somebody else, we do that. You can have a good bookkeeper who can help you with that and others. So point is, it's got to be done. We got to have the proper structure. I don't think I ever finished this. You got to have it properly documented, and then you got to maintain the entity in a business-like manner. If you don't, they can pierce the corporate veil and get at your personal assets. So we have a compliance program where we do check in with clients on a regular basis. We have checklists. Have you done this? Have you done this? Did you open a bank account? Some people even say, well, I got these 3 or 4 LLCs. They all do something differently. Do I need 3 or 4 bank accounts? And the answer is, yeah. Tell me a real company that doesn't have a bank account. And the whole point is, when push comes to shove and you find yourself in court and the plaintiff is arguing to the judge, Your Honor, this isn't even a real LLC. Tim didn't take it seriously, doesn't even have a bank account, doesn't have documents. Well, why should I take it seriously? Let's just disregard the existence of this LLC. Let me get at Tim's personal assets. And that's the argument that's going to be made in court. And so you want to be able to say, well, Your Honor, he's wrong. I've got a bank account. Here are my tax returns. Here are my books. Here's my profit and loss statement. Here are my financials. Here are all my documents. You want to be able to produce documents when they ask for them, that because the plaintiff's going to go over those with a fine-tooth comb, and they're going to be looking for omissions, things you didn't do, so they can make that argument in court that it's not a real company. Let's disregard it. Let me get at your personal assets. That's the whole game.
So if I remember correctly, you had some things to say about sole proprietorship.
Mm-hmm.
In Texas, I know that a single member LLC is treated as a sole proprietorship. But if I'm a single guy and I don't have a partner, do I just form a limited partnership? How do I get away from that if it's a bad thing?
Yeah, well, we can form another entity that will be the other member of that LLC. And now you've got a multi-member LLC, which is better, generally speaking, than a single-member LLC. And the whole rationale is long ago there were general partnerships. 2 guys just get together. They want to open a store on the frontier. Well, one of those guys has a creditor problem. In the old days, under a general partnership, which still applies today, the creditor could come in and seize the assets of the store, of the business, and satisfy, their claim. Well, the problem was that the other partner didn't do anything wrong, but he got screwed. He lost his business too because he was in a general partnership. So out of that grew a limited partnership, which now says if these two guys are doing business together in a limited partnership, one of them has a creditor problem, the creditor can now place a lien against that partner's interest and take the distribution that partner would have received. And the whole goal is to protect the innocent party. Well, in a single member LLC, where's the innocent party that we're trying to protect?
Me.
You're not so innocent if you did something wrong through the LLC. So that is the rationale the courts use to say, well, single member LLCs are just not going to be as protective as a multi-member LLC. So there you go.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit leading you here because our C Corp is our management entity and is our general partner in all of our entities. And
yep, that's good.
It's the management. It bears all burden and makes most of the decisions, right? And signs most of the documents.
That's right.
As the manager. It's also a licensed real estate brokerage, so it kind of does a lot of public-facing stuff. So anyway, but if I'm out there, oh, by the way, I've always been told that having a K-1 instead of a Schedule C makes you less likely to be audited.
That's right. Schedule C is audited at a much higher rate than receiving a K-1.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because I get like 15 K-1s now. It's kind of like, I don't even know. It's somebody's like, oh, this year's return, it had to be the day before it's due after the extension. I mean, it's automatic extensions. All right, so what else do we need to cover, Bob? I mean, actually, we're good. We got a couple more minutes. Trust. You brought up trust, I believe. Man, there's so much going on with, you think you have health care and it's actually horrible, or then you have these assets and you want to protect them, or, my wife and I, we travel a lot, Bob, and like if a plane went down, like I feel sorry for like whoever has to clean up the mess. It's pretty organized, but it's still a mess. How do you guys help with kind of estate planning and long-term asset protection?
Yeah, we do.
And is there any advice maybe you could give the audience on maybe how to start thinking? Because if you plan to be successful and you said start in the right manner, is there some things people should consider or look at as they're thinking about leaving their kids $20 million worth of houses type things?
Well, those are lucky kids if they're going to get $20 million worth of houses. But
we $20 million worth of debt on it too.
Yeah. Well, no, estate planning is important. Now, not to avoid estate tax because the exemption is so high, it's like in the $25 million range for a husband and a wife who are married. So estate taxes no longer are the issue. The issue becomes probate and passing assets on to your intended beneficiaries. And so a living trust is typically the vehicle for that. It's called a revocable living trust, meaning you can rip it up and make it go away at any time. You can revoke it, change it, amend it. But that is the tool or the legal vehicle you use to make sure that your loved ones are going to receive what you intend for them to receive. But also a living trust is important for you because a lot of times, we're all, none of us are going to get out of this thing alive. We're all going to die. And it'd be great.
I don't know about you, Bob, but
yeah. It'd be great, just to die in your sleep and boom, it's over. But, that doesn't happen all the time. And sometimes you get to live a very long life and maybe you're in your 90s and you can't maintain your rental properties the way you used to. And so you want to have a power of attorney to allow someone else to handle the financial affairs for you on your behalf and on behalf of the rest of your family. So that's one of the things. You can have living wills within a living trust. These are called ancillary documents that go with it. And, that's in case you can't communicate what you need. You can't give informed consent medically. And so somebody else who you've designated, once again, it all comes down to documentation. They can make the decisions for you. Yes, we give consent to have this procedure done, etc. So all those things are part of estate planning, part of a living trust. And, it's answering and facing questions that we'd really not rather face, because we now have to think through all these different scenarios. I want my kids to get my money, but what if one of those kids is hooked on drugs and they're just going to blow the money on, on bad stuff? So now you can put into the trust things like Junior is going to receive X amount of money, but only if he is not, a drug addict. So we want to, you're going to put in the provisions. He has to be drug tested, has to be free. If he is hooked on drugs, has to get counseling before he can receive any kind of inheritance. So
a FICO score restriction. It's kind of all handled.
Right, yeah. So, all those things can be done. It's very, very flexible, and essentially you write into the trust what you need and what is going to fit your particular family and situation. So all kinds of benefits from having a good living trust.
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and I have a list of questions my wife told me to ask you, and then we're going to do the Money Minute. So stick around. We'll be right back.
REI Inc. is a monthly business publication for real estate investors, covering all types of real estate investments and strategies. It is the most comprehensive real estate investment publication on the market. All of the articles are written by the top leaders in the industry, so investors are assured of always getting the best information possible. Each month, REI Inc. also profiles the top companies in the industry and provides insights and data into key regional markets. Along with their sister platforms, the REI Referral Network and Highest Invest, real estate investors have exclusive access to off-market investment opportunities and national acquisition and disposition initiatives. To learn more, visit www.rei-inc.com, where you can also access the REI Referral Network. Also, be sure and visit www.highest-and-best.com to view the latest exclusive off-market assets with near immediate acceptance decisions and closing strategies. You can also email marketing@rei-referralnetwork.com to request more information.
Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm Tim Herridge. I'm still here with Bob Bluhm, one of the godfathers of the legal system. Don't forget, if you're still watching, click below, like, share, rate, subscribe, review. Let us know what you think. Bob, it's time for the Money Minute. The Money Minute's my favorite part of the show, honestly. I want you to take up to 60 seconds, look into the camera, and tell the audience the most important advice you can give them. You can pretend it's a brand new entrepreneur. You can pretend it's someone that's arrived. You can talk to whoever you would like, but it's got to be your most powerful stuff, the best you got. Are you ready?
We'll see.
All right.
Well, I'm going to assume I'm talking to my kids who are trying to launch. They're in that young adult phase, trying to figure out who they are, what they want to do. So I would tell them, start investing in real estate early on. Pay attention to your finances. Be responsible financially. Pay your bills. Be careful. Live on less than you make. Make sure you're putting something away all the time. Plan for contingencies. Plan for the transmission going out. It's always going to happen. So have a reserve. Don't spend everything you have. Invest wisely, and you will be okay as time goes on. But you got to be patient. It's not going to happen all at once. But if you're using good principles, following good principles, you'll be okay. Get a good coach in whatever you're going to do, whether you're investing in real estate, stocks, whatever it's going to be. Get somebody knowledgeable who knows the business and can teach you what you need to know.
So, turning points. I find that everybody on this show always has a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
You smile a lot and seem like a happy guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not common with attorneys, specifically trial attorneys.
Right.
They're mean. They're snarky. In that complaint I was telling you we're filing, I think there's 4 attorneys on my side signing off, and they're definitely not people you want to go to the baseball game with, right? Look,
Right.
What was the turning point that told Bob Bluhm, I am tired of this. I want to do that?
Yeah. Well, it was a case that I was defending a big company. Everybody would know the name, and they had done something wrong. They fired some guys because of their age. It's age discrimination. Can't do that. So the plaintiffs were the guys who were fired. They were trying to get either their jobs back, get back pay, get their pensions back, get everything restored, and they had a great case. And we were in trial. The case was going along. We were getting beat up pretty badly. But the plaintiff's lawyer made a serious mistake. And I capitalized on that mistake, and we won the case. Shouldn't have won, according to truth, justice, and the American way. We won. And normally in a case like that, it's one company suing another. But this time, these were people. And as I left the courtroom, feeling good, we won. I saw these people huddled with their families. They were weeping. Their wives were saying, we're going to lose our house. What are we going to do? Because these guys were never going to get another job at their age that was going to pay them anything close. They were ruined financially. And that was wrong. And I was part of that wrong. And I decided then and there, I'm not going to do litigation anymore. I'm leaving the trial world. But I took everything I had learned inside the courtroom and did a 180-degree turn and decided I'm going to protect people from, like I said, lawyers like I used to be. So it's way more satisfying for me to give people peace of mind, knowing that, letting them know you're good to go, you're protected. We taught you this, do this, don't do that. And it's so much better because now they have freedom from fear, they have confidence, they have professionalism, and, to go out and do deals, and they've got peace of mind. And it's way more satisfying than being a junkyard dog litigator.
That's great stuff, man. How do you feel in your Money Minute? You were talking about don't try to go alone. Riding a bike is one of those things that you can probably figure out on your own, but it's going to be painful.
Yeah, it is.
Right? I mean, it's going to hurt.
Right.
I may or may not have been involved in a pro se litigation recently. I mean,
You have a friend who was, right?
Yeah, this guy named Tim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now with artificial intelligence and with internet and law libraries and downloadable forms, I really felt smart. And my attorneys told me we'll just say it was me. He said I did a great job for a pro se guy. But man, when they filed for the motion of summary judgment, I felt so alone because I was way over my head. And before I just thought it was just this little HOA I was just messing with. But they got Bob Bluhm before the turning point in a downtown Dallas high rise. And that dude was after me.
Yep.
I mean, he is nasty. You are nasty. I mean, just, oh my gosh. And I just remember I was looking at it like, what have I gotten myself into? So, I hired my defense team, even though it wasn't my defense team. It's actually that plaintiff team. They brought my wife and my companies in it. I mean, like, it's the real deal now.
Yeah, it is.
Right? We're burning through some cash every week.
It's World War III.
Yeah, and I can't help but think a better filing at the beginning, a little bit more thought out, and I wouldn't have found myself. Now, we won the summary judgment.
Good.
So it got denied. We didn't win anything.
Yeah. But you didn't lose at that point. Yeah.
We defeated the summary judgment.
Good. Yeah.
And now we're going for declaratory judgments. But it's just such a blessing to read, Ben is the lead attorney now, to read Ben's filings and the way he lays out the statement of facts and the way he lays out the remedies. I'm like, yes, that's what I meant.
That's it. Yeah. He said what I was thinking. Yeah.
So, not to talk about my HOA thing all the time, but I wanted to go somewhere because you said earlier you have clients call you and they need something.
Yeah.
Not everyone has this Rolodex that I have or that you have that can get an attorney to jump into a summary judgment hearing with a bunch of pro se crud and only 2 weeks to get everything ready. Right?
Right.
And I always say about working with a lender, see, I'm always going somewhere, Bob. You don't want to talk to a lender when you need money. You need to talk to a lender when you don't need money.
Right.
I feel like the same about an attorney because if you're already on my team and you already know my stuff and I need a resolution, it's probably pretty easy.
Yeah.
But if we're starting from scratch, it's probably not.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, in life, you want to have a doctor because, you want to be able to go to the doctor and have a relationship with a doctor when something comes up. You're feeling a little pain here or there. So now you don't have to go looking for a doctor, which could prolong the whole process. So better to have a team, better to have a bank you work with or a lender you work with on a regular basis. You want to do real estate deals? There you go, RCN Capital. Better to have lawyers that, maybe real estate lawyers or other types of lawyers that you're going to need to call on a regular basis. So, yeah, I mean, this is all part of, forming a team, and we do it in other areas of life. We ought to do it on the legal side if you're going to have legal needs. But, going back to your summary judgment, it's kind of like, yeah, you can represent yourself because you just got in the pool and you're thinking, hey, it's only 3 feet. This is easy. I don't need anything.
We started in JP Court.
Yeah, exactly. But pretty soon you get into the deep end of the pool, and now you're in trouble because you may not be able to handle that deep end. And so it is good to have.
Well, the current sweeps you out.
Yes, it does.
And then you realize it's not the law as much as the procedure.
That's right.
That attorney that you beat in your story probably didn't mess up on the law.
Nope.
But he probably messed up on procedure.
Exactly right.
And that was the thing, is I didn't know you could object to this or object to that or the proper way to object. And then I filed my response. And this dude objects to every single thing I filed. I'm like, you can't do that. But then I start reading and you're like, oh my gosh, you can.
Yeah.
And so absolutely. Well, so Bob, there's someone out there. We try to give as much as we can during the show. And our goal every episode is we want the listener to have another way they can we want to be able to make more money, right? We want them to have a more successful business. Is there anything we haven't covered that maybe we could cover in the next couple minutes that would help them accomplish that?
Well, I'm not on the money side of things. I'm on the we call making money offense, and I'm on defense. So you got to have both sides of the game. You can't have a great offense and a lousy defense. You're going to lose the game with that.
That's the Cowboys.
Yeah, sorry, but that's my side of the field is the defense side. So I don't really coach people. Sorry, Tim, on how to make money, how to do this. I show people how to keep money and protect their money that they've already made. So that's really my area of specialty. Yeah. So on a money minute, I'm afraid I'm kind of an empty glass there.
Well, so if someone's watching, they're thinking, I've got that pizza LLC in Dallas, and those Georgia houses may not be protected. How do they get in touch with you, and what types of services or solutions does your company offer?
Well, we are asset defense team. That means we structure people in ways to protect them from personal liability, minimize their business risk, minimize taxes, and reduce their risk of an IRS audit by being properly structured and properly documented, and helping you learn how to maintain those entities, once again, in a business-like manner. So that's what we do. We do estate planning as well. We do planning for businesses, and that's our area of expertise. People can get a hold of us by just looking up Asset Defense Team. We don't do any social media. We get floods and floods of referrals all the time, and we stay very, very busy with that. But so somebody could reach us online at info@assetdefenseteam.com. They could call our office if they want to. 945-542-7738 is the number. If we can help you, we'll let you know. If we can't, well, then we'll refer you on to somebody who can.
Well, we'll put all that down in the show notes. And you don't sell training or anything. They're going to contact you if they want help in a team.
Right.
And the last thing I want to real quick touch on, do you guys handle a lot of the bulk of our audience is a 40, 50-year-old investor, entrepreneur. And a lot of us have aging parents. And a lot of our aging parents are, union workers or whatnot, that the entire plan was to keep them on insurance till they were 65 and then let Medicare figure that out.
Right.
And now you start looking at assets, you start looking at protecting homesteads and things like that. Is that some stuff that Asset Defense Team can help us with?
Yeah, it certainly is.
Like the Wilson Trust, the Ladybird deed, that type of thing?
You bet. We do all that. And you're exactly right. Our avatar, if you will, is 40, 50, 60 years old, and they do have aging parents. And so a lot of times we're dealing with protecting them and structuring the 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds better. But, hey, mom needs a trust. Mom's getting up in years, and so we help with that as well. So you're right.
Well, that's what we got to, it's just a personal note for the audience. I mean, my mother-in-law is in her mid-80s, and she fell for one of those phone scams and literally canceled my father-in-law's union insurance and switched him over to Medicare Advantage. And now, I mean, it's just, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And we're literally actively considering whether or not to try to get guardianship over her. We've got powers of attorney, but that doesn't really help you on a phone call. And we didn't know that she had to resign as one of the power of attorney. So there's a lot that my wife, Jennifer, and I are going to reach out to you to. And I just wanted to throw that out for the audience because it's something that's like, it's a personal strife that I'm going through that I think a lot of my cohort, my avatar, either is or is about to probably have to deal with.
Right. That's life.
Yeah.
These are things that are going to happen.
Well, Bob, thank you for being here.
You bet,
Thank
Tim.
you for sharing with us. Thank you guys for stopping back by. That is it. Remember, your net worth is your network, and today you've been growing both. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Uncontested Investing Show. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time. The preceding program is furnished by RCN Capital, LLC. The information provided is for general education purposes only and does not constitute any legal, financial, investment, or other professional advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by any speaker are the speaker's own opinion and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of RCN Capital, LLC. No information contained in this episode should be construed as financial, investment, or legal advice from RCN or any individual, author, host, or guest. You should always consult a financial advisor before investing.